Some stories don't need words. They speak through emotions, through silence, through moments. Here, every frame is a story, every pause is a message. Welcome to Tales Beyond Words, where silence speaks and feelings tell the tale. Franklin Manufacturing, a large factory nestled in the heart of Dayton, Ohio. The plant specialized in producing precision parts for the automotive industry, and it had a reputation for quality and efficiency. The hum of machines filled the air, punctuated by the shouts of workers coordinating their tasks. Mr. Robert Johnson, the CEO, stood in his office overlooking the factory floor, feeling the pressure mounting as deadlines approached. Robert had worked hard to grow Franklin Manufacturing into a respected name. His leadership had brought new clients, better technology, and a motivated workforce. But despite all the progress, the company still relied heavily on some of the older machines, workhorses that had served them well but sometimes acted up unexpectedly. That morning, disaster struck. The plant's main assembly machine, known affectionately by the workers as Big Blue, suddenly stopped mid-operation. The entire production line ground to a halt. Without the parts from Big Blue, shipments would be delayed, clients would be unhappy, and the company's reputation could take a hit. Robert watched anxiously as his team of technicians scrambled to diagnose the problem. They checked circuits, motors, and sensors, but no one could quickly pinpoint the issue. Minutes felt like hours, and tension grew. Near the entrance of the plant, a young boy named Jake Miller stood quietly. Jake was 15 years old, with dirt-streaked jeans and calloused hands from helping out on his family's farm just outside of Dayton. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had come to visit his father, Mr. David Miller, who worked part-time as a consultant for the factory, helping maintain some of the older equipment. Jake wasn't an expert on machines. His knowledge mostly came from helping fix tractors and farm tools on the Miller family farm. But he was curious and observant, always eager to learn how things worked. Robert Johnson, seeing the panic on his technicians' faces and feeling the weight of the deadline, scanned the crowd desperately for a solution. His eyes landed on Jake, standing near the doorway. "Hey, kid," Robert called out loudly, his voice echoing over the factory floor. "Come over here. Try fixing that machine." The workers paused, exchanging confused looks. "The CEO just asked a kid to fix Big Blue? Are you serious?" one technician muttered. Jake froze for a moment, surprised by the sudden attention. He looked up at Mr. Johnson, unsure if the request was a joke. But Robert's expression was serious, desperate even. Jake took a deep breath and nodded. He walked towards the machine, his heart pounding. The eyes of the entire factory followed him as he approached Big Blue. As he reached the base of the machine, Jake tried to recall everything his father had taught him over the years. He knew that older machines had wiring and mechanical parts that could sometimes get loose or jammed. His hands instinctively began checking bolts, wires, and sensors, carefully moving components to see if anything looked out of place. A crowd had gathered by now, including several supervisors and technicians, all watching the boy with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Jake felt their eyes on him but forced himself to stay calm. Minutes passed, and Jake's persistence began to pay off. He noticed a small wire near the control panel that looked loose. He tugged gently and found that the wire's connector had come undone, causing the machine to lose power intermittently. With careful fingers, Jake reattached the wire, making sure it was secure. Then he turned to one of the nearby technicians and asked, "Can you try starting it now?" The technician nodded and flipped the switch. Big Blue rumbled to life again, the motors whirring, and the assembly line resumed its steady rhythm. A cheer erupted from the crowd. Robert Johnson was stunned. "How did you know what to do?" he asked, genuinely impressed. Jake shrugged. "My dad's a farmer, but he used to work on machines like this. I guess I picked up a few things." What Robert didn't know was that Jake's father, David Miller, had once been an electrical engineer at a big manufacturing plant before retiring early to run the family farm. David kept his skills sharp, often advising local businesses on equipment maintenance, but he kept his past career quiet, focusing on his life as a farmer. Robert walked over to Jake and smiled. "You just saved the day, kid. Tell me, do you want to learn more about how these machines work?" Jake's eyes lit up. "Yeah, I do." From that moment on, Jake was no longer just the farmer's son who happened to be at the right place at the right time. He became someone with potential, a young talent with a real chance to build a future beyond the fields of Ohio. After that unforgettable morning, things changed quickly for Jake Miller. Word of the young boy who fixed Big Blue spread fast through Franklin Manufacturing. The CEO, Mr. Robert Johnson, was so impressed that he personally invited Jake to spend time at the plant learning how the machines worked. Jake's father, David Miller, was proud but cautious. He knew his son had talent, but also understood the challenges of shifting from farm life to the high-tech world of manufacturing. Still, he agreed to let Jake visit the plant after school. On Jake's first official day as a kind of apprentice at Franklin Manufacturing, Robert Johnson met him at the gate. "Welcome to the team, Jake," Robert said with a warm smile. "We're going to teach you everything you need to know." Jake nodded eagerly, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The plant was like a giant puzzle, with machines humming, conveyor belts moving, and workers coordinating smoothly. Jake was introduced to the maintenance crew, technicians and engineers who would become his mentors. They showed him how to read schematics, use diagnostic tools, and perform routine repairs. At first, Jake found the technical language overwhelming. Terms like PLC programming, hydraulic pressure, and calibration felt like a foreign language. But he had a strong work ethic from growing up on the farm, and he was determined to learn. Each day after school, Jake would spend hours at the plant. He asked questions, took notes, and helped fix small issues under supervision. His hands, used to handling tools on the farm, were surprisingly steady and skilled. Meanwhile, Robert Johnson kept a close eye on Jake's progress. He saw something rare in the boy, a natural curiosity paired with practical skills and the kind of grit that was hard to teach. One afternoon, a more complicated problem arose. A newer machine, called the Titan Cutter, started malfunctioning during a critical run. The technicians had tried everything but couldn't figure out the cause. Robert thought of Jake. "Why don't you take a look?" he said. Jake felt a mix of excitement and pressure. He went over to the Titan Cutter and began his inspection, remembering everything he'd learned so far. He carefully examined the sensors, motors, and wiring harnesses. After about 30 minutes, Jake identified a worn-out sensor causing intermittent errors. He explained the issue to the lead technician and suggested replacing the sensor. The repair was made, and the Titan Cutter resumed full operation. Robert shook Jake's hand firmly. "You're making this place better, kid. Ever thought about a career in engineering?" Jake smiled. "I think I'm starting to." At home, Jake's father was happy to see his son discovering new opportunities. One evening, David sat down with Jake to talk about the future. "You know, son, I didn't tell you everything." "About my old job," David said. "Before farming, I worked as an engineer for over 20 years. I left because I wanted a quieter life, but I always believed you could do great things if you set your mind to it." Jake looked up, eyes shining. "Thanks, Dad. I want to learn everything. Maybe I can even go to college for engineering one day." David smiled proudly. "I'll support you all the way." Months passed, and Jake grew more confident and skilled. Robert Johnson officially hired him as a junior technician. Jake balanced school and work, determined to make the most of this unexpected chance. One day, Robert invited Jake to a company meeting with investors and senior managers. He introduced Jake as a symbol of the company's future, showing how opportunity, hard work, and talent could come from anywhere. Jake spoke briefly, sharing how a simple chance had changed his life. The room erupted in applause. The story of the farmer's son who fixed the machine became an inspiration throughout Dayton. It reminded everyone that sometimes talent hides in the most unexpected places. Years later, Jake would graduate with an engineering degree and become one of Franklin Manufacturing's top engineers, designing innovative machines that helped the company grow even more. And it all started with a CEO who believed in giving a kid a chance, even when no one else did.